Day one of the NFL draft was honestly one of the most exciting days of the NFL draft that I've seen so far. Some of the things that happened, the people that fell, the trades, where people were picked, and just want to briefly go over kind of what every team did from 1 to 32, where it went out, and how my takeaways from it. And I'm not going to talk about Cam Ward much, but Cam Ward goes number one. And I think it's a really impressive story for him being a very low recruited player and then being the first overall pick. You could see it through the emotion. I don't know how great he'll be, but he has the intangibles of guys like Caleb Williams and of guys like Patrick Mahomes. Not saying he's going to be Patrick Mahomes at all, but he's got similar intangibles. And I think that Tennessee has actually a lot more talent than people think offensively. They just need someone at the helm. Will Levis was one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL last year. You bring Cam Ward in, it's a weak division. They got a shot at that division for sure. But I thought Tennessee got a lot better today. Then you go to the big trade at number two, and I think it's a boneheaded move by Jacksonville because you don't give up that much for a non-quarterback. If it was a generational quarterback prospect, it would maybe make sense. But Travis Hunter, I think he's going to be a really good player. I have him projected as a future Hall of Famer. I get that. But this is what I will say about Travis Hunter and the somewhat concerns that I had for him is that, one, you do have to factor the competition he played against. That's something that has to be factored. Also, you do have to factor that position for position wise, he's not number one in this draft, in my opinion, in either category. Wasn't the best receiver in this draft, wasn't the best corner, was probably number two in both categories. You put that together with the athleticism, that's why he's where he's supposed to be pick-wise. Another thing that I have, he looks small in college. Him looking small in college means that he's going to look really small in the pros, which means he's going to have a frail body. It worries me. It worries me a lot about his sustained health because he's going to be playing maybe over 100 snaps a game because he's demanding to play both ways, which I would do too. I would play him both ways. But the problem that I have with that is the usage. He's going to get hurt at some point. And if you're Jacksonville, I think you only make this move if you think you're one player away. Is Jacksonville one player away? Because he's going to go into a receiver room. He's not going to be the best receiver. Brian Thomas Jr. had a ridiculous year last year. He's not going to be the primary target receiver-wise. So I think you have some questions. It's a young GM. Might have made a mistake, but the Browns they got a haul. They got a lot. And I think the Browns were looking at it saying, hey, we're not one player away here. We're several players away. Let's get picks. Let's figure it out. And let's move on from there. And let's find ourselves in a spot where we can get instead of getting one Travis Hunter that doesn't really help us, we can get like 4 to 5 players that can help us 2 years down the road. This is a project now in Cleveland. Number 3, the Giants wisely take Abdul Carter. I thought Shador could have went here. Very, very well could have went here, but clearly there was some that they didn't like about Shador. Abdul Carter going to be a really solid player, close to a sure thing, and I think it fits well with the Giants. Patriots, they go Will Campbell. This was something that I had mocked for a long, long time. It was if Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter, if neither of them fell to 4, they were going O-line. Will Campbell, I saw some projections of him being 13, saw some projections of him being at that Patriots pick. I think he's a solid tackle. We'll see if he's the best one in this draft, but they need to protect Bo Nix. It makes sense. Number 5, the Browns, Mason Graham. If you're looking at the Mason Graham pick, I think it's getting dogged by a lot of people. in that division in cold weather, what I've seen from him, he's a consistent player. He's not going to miss. And I think that's the big thing. You're looking at who else they could have went with at this pick. They could have, I'll throw out some names. They could have went with T-Mac, the wide receiver. Don't think it would have worked out in their favor. They're not ready for Ashton Genty. Don't have the right O-line. Don't have the personnel for him, for that to make sense. That would be like him going to the cat. They don't have the right intangibles to bring him in. Colson Loveland or Warren, I just don't see the fit there at that pick at 5. I think it's a great pick for the Browns. You have a sustainable guy. You know he's going to work out. I like the pick. Next, the Raiders with Ashton Genty. I think overall, if you're looking at Ashton Genty, this is a pretty good landing spot. You're in Vegas. He's a really solid runner. And, we'll see. We'll see if they are ready. But if you look at it, I think they need to build around the O-line. But you have Brock Bauer. You have two really good tight ends there. You have a really good head coach with running backs and offensive coordinator with running backs in Chip Kelly. Believe LaShawn McCoy had his two best, most productive seasons under Chip Kelly. Expect Genty to flourish in that offense. The Jets, I was kind of surprised they went with Miembo. I was kind of surprised about that, the offensive tackle. I thought this for sure was going to be Tyler Warren. But I think you look at it and they realize that Fields gets sacked a lot. And I think, honestly, potential-wise, this was the offensive lineman with most potential in the draft. And can't blame him for doing this. The Panthers getting T-Mac, the wide receiver of Arizona, just makes sense on all levels because, and I don't know what level of player he's going to be, but I think it's a risk that you had to take because you need to see what you got with Bryce Young at this point. You need to see what you got with him. It's very possible that Bryce Young could benefit from having this guy. They have LeGarrette, the other guy, so I don't mind it. Number 9, a lot of people thought the Saints were going to go with Shador. They go with Kelvin Banks Jr. Yeah, I don't think it would have made any sense for them to go quarterback. They're not close, and it's not like they're a quarterback away, this team. So I don't mind the Kelvin Banks pick. The Bears get Colson Loveland at 10. I thought it was really weird that Warren wasn't this pick, that they didn't get Warren, because I think Warren, he's more valuable of a tight end. But then you look more into it, Loveland they don't have to scheme Loveland open. He's more of a natural route runner, which is something that I think that Caleb Williams needs right now. So it makes sense. It makes sense. The Niners did exactly what I thought they'd do. They got Mykel Williams. This is a guy that is on the edge. They needed to get younger on defense. This is a great way to do it. I love the Cowboys pick. Tyler Booker getting inside guard. It's not the most flashy pick. It's not the most flashy pick, and it didn't have to be. They're another team that just needs to build depth. They need to get good in the trenches. They didn't need a guy like Genty. They didn't need Hampton. They needed somebody that can help their foundation, and I thought this was a phenomenal pick. And, the best thing they've done in the past 3 years, the Dallas Cowboys, getting Tyler Booker here. Miami, I like their pick too. Kenneth Grant, get better on defense. Kenneth Grant, you've seen the tape, really solid interior defensive lineman. It's a good pick. Colts, Tyler Warren. Tyler Warren, he's going to be a baller in this league. Some of the stuff, he did everything at Penn State. And I think they're going to ask him to do a lot for the Colts. But it's a good team for him to land with because they need a lot of help in certain areas. And I bet you he takes 5 to 10 snaps at quarterback this year. I just have a feeling that he does behind the center. He took 46 at Penn State. So I expect them to use him at a high volume during the next year. Georgia, I'll talk about both Georgia's picks right now. Jalen Walker, and they traded up to get James Pierce Jr. Didn't like that they gave away their first round pick next year, but it makes a lot more sense than Jacksonville because there's a plan connected to it, I feel like, where they're building out that defense. They have a good offensive roster. They just need to get better on defense. This allows their defense to get built more out to really solid players. I think JPJ debatably is one of the best edges in this draft. I just think he's been getting kind of slept on, but I like what they did. Cardinals won't talk about it for that long. Walter Nolan just wanted a good pick. They needed that interior D line better. The Bengals did what I thought they should do. Take one of the best available defensive guys. I think Shamar Stewart's going to be a really solid player. I think you can tell that this guy loves football by his energy. You saw when he got drafted, just the excitement. He's ready to go, and I'd be excited too. You're going to a Bengals team where they're really a defense away from being back in that Super Bowl conversation. You have a shot if you're Shamar Stewart here to kind of lead that unit and project them up. And I think he's got a lot of upside. There's certain small things that he doesn't do the best, but if you're talking upside in this game, he's got it. Didn't love the Seattle Seahawks Gray Zabel pick. I think Zabel was probably should have been more in that 30 to 35 range. You're talking about a guy that was at North Dakota State. You're not playing the big guy. I think it's a little concerning. I think he'll be fine because he did dominate, but it's something to be aware of. Tampa Bay gets Emeka Egbuka. This is something that I actually mocked really early, and then I switched it a few times. I think you're getting a really good locker room guy. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, they have trouble staying healthy. Get a guy like Emeka Egbuka so you don't have to worry about that. Love the pick. Didn't 100% right off the bat love the Broncos pick, but if you look at it, I would have liked them to take Hampton, not going to lie, but Barron, you get a good corner. Now, you might have one of the best secondaries in the NFL now, if you think about it, because they got Patrick Surtain on one. So it's not a terrible pick by any stretch. I just think they needed one more level of offensive firepower. Steelers played extremely safe, get Derek Harmon. I think it's a good thing they didn't get Shedeur Sanders. I think that's one of the few teams where that would have been a mess, but this is a little too safe for my liking. But Derek Harmon, I could see this going either way. I could actually, if there's like a bust that I could initially see in this draft, it's Gray Zabel, and another one would be Derek Harmon, but he could have a good career. You go to the Chargers, Marion Hampton, great pick, needed a back. This is a strong back, really physical runner that I think is going to make them a lot better. When Dobbins was at his best, they were their best. So if this guy's able to have similar or better production, they're going to be a playoff team again this year. Matthew Golden went to Green Bay. Matthew Golden has really exceptional tape at the wide receiver position out of Texas. Really played well against every level of competition. And that's the thing with Green Bay. They have a lot of twos on that roster. They have a lot of two-level wide receivers. Don't have a pure one. Can Matthew Golden be that one? And I think there's a possibility he could. He was under the radar a little bit going into that year last year, and he really finished strong, had a great year. Definitely think he could be a one receiver. I don't know if it's going to be immediate, but if you look at his tape, a lot of upside. The Vikings get Donovan Jackson. This is a great pick. I mean, altogether, if you think about it, well, I will say this is something I had mocked early as well. I was like, this guy's got to go earlier than this. He was a guard, high-level All-American guard at Ohio State, and Josh Simmons got hurt, so they had to move him to tackle. That's really tough to do, and he held his own, and he had to block some pretty good talent, and he was able to do it good. So That's why I like Donovan Jackson going to Minnesota. Giants trade up, they get Jackson Dart. I don't initially right off the bat, I don't agree with it. I think the Dart reminds me a lot of a guy like Zach Wilson. Don't love it. Was not amazing at Ole Miss. Never when I watched him at Ole Miss did I say this is a first round quarterback. When I watched him play, I thought he was more like a fourth round quarterback. But there's a quarterback every year that flies above the radars and goes high in the draft. This is the one this year. And, you can call it a super prediction. I don't think he's going to fare well in the NFL. I think Shador would have been a far better pick in this spot. And I'll kind of get into the Shador talk after this. Going to the Ravens, I thought that was a great. You have Kyle Hamilton on one side, Malachi Starks. That's going to work seamlessly. Detroit got Tyleik Williams. I had this mocked in, I believe, 3.0, where I think a guy like Tyleik Williams, that's exactly what they needed in Detroit. They just need more depth on the defensive interior. Washington gets another tackle. Don't blame him for doing it. I mean, you have your cornerstone franchise quarterback. Why not get a guy like Josh Connerly Jr.? And I think he fell a little bit. I think he should have been a little bit higher. The Bills, they get a corner. They desperately needed secondary. We knew that was going to happen. There was a weird trade with the teams that were in the Super Bowl last year, the Eagles and the Chiefs. Didn't really make a lot of sense to me. But the Eagles get another linebacker, Jaheed Campbell from Alabama. A bit of a project. He's got a lot of injury issues, reason he was drafted so late. And the Chiefs get a similar level guy with Josh Simmons, who is coming off a pretty serious injury that takes about a full year of recovery, but nonetheless a really talented offensive tackle from Ohio State. He was tearing it up until that Oregon game where he got hurt. And as we go into day two, the big question is Shedeur Sanders undrafted. And I went through a few mocks, and it did come to my attention that if he didn't get drafted at pick 9, that he could fall all the way to 21. And if he fell through 21, unless somebody traded up, he wasn't going to get drafted. I still don't get the Giants doing that. If you look at it, I still believe that Shedeur Sanders is the most accurate quarterback in this draft, hands down. Most pro-ready, debatably throws a really good ball out of the pocket. What people don't realize is that's the most important skill in the NFL at quarterback. I just think a lot of people don't like him because of what the ego is that's brought with him. He's probably cocky. I understand that. And that has historically not worked with, you talk about guys like Johnny Manziel, Baker at first, before he kind of got humbled. And it's probably the best thing that could happen to Shedeur Sanders because he's gonna get humbled by this. I think a lot of people are thrown off that the only coach he's ever had before in his life was his dad. It's things that when you're talking about millions of dollars like this, these are big contracts in the first round. People get a little iffy on certain situations. I think he'll be fine. I think he'll be a good player. I don't know where he goes. Whether it's the Saints, I don't think Cleveland gets him at this point. But we'll see. We'll see. Great first round.